Alrighty people, welcome to my Fantasy Strike character breakdown, and today we'll be featuring DeGrey, the ghostly diplomat. Throughout this tutorial, I'll be going through not only normals, specials, and other things pertaining to his toolkit, but also small strategies, techs, and things that you can utilize throughout battle. With that being said, guys, let's get started and looking at his toolkit and what makes him tick. So first off, we have 3 grounded normal attacks, one of which is a elbow lunge, what I'll be referring to as 6A. It is throw invulnerable, very, very handy for the way that he'll be playing his game. Your neutral A or 5A, and it is a punch which can be chained into himself. And then lastly, his 4A, which is a ground pound. Now keep in mind, there are no lows in this game, but as it says, has very crazy range. Next, we have his counterpoint step, which allows you to have different enders and follow-ups depending on a different button press. Very unique to the character. And lastly, we have Ghost, which you can send the ghostly diplomat behind you in order to capture your opponent who is just not expecting it, throwing out random buttons, or just completely not blocking. Next, we have our aerial attacks. So first off was which is your jumping A, which is just a standard jump and attack, nothing too silly about it. But he does have a jumping B, which can be pressed twice or once and has different advantageous things for it as well. Lastly, you can do your ghost in the air, which will go diagonally down and still capture an opponent if they are not ready. Lastly, we have our 2 supers, one of which is on the ground, a parry, and it does 2 damage. It hurts a lot when you make the good call out. And then lastly, a very fast, and I do mean a very fast full screen punch in the fact of Final Arbiter. So with that being said, let's go over why some of this stuff is actually really good. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what our normals do now that we know what they are. Starting off with 5A, little swipe, yep, 7 frame startup. It's actually +1 on block. And on top of that, if you get the counter hit, it's 8 +8, and can also be special canceled into our vanity step or our ghost, right? Next, you have 5AA. Now the second hit of this is actually 11 frames. But it's +2 on block, +10 on counter hit, and can also be special summoned. And I'll show you some examples of why the counter hit actually matters on some of these things, right? So next, you have 4A, which will be your back A. That's the thing that we said had crazy range. Now remember, you don't have lows, but like from around this distance, somewhere close to here, you can start to harass your opponent with the little shockwave that comes out of it though. And it can't be special canceled, and it is 12 frames, but you should be doing it at a range that doesn't net you anything bad. It is -4, so it's not like you get to keep harassing with it or anything, but on counter hit, it knocks down and it pops up. So there's definitely some benefit for using it. Lastly, we have 6A or forward A, and that's that elbow that we went over earlier. 15 frames of startup, so definitely his slowest normal. However, it's +1 on block up close, and then at a distance, it's actually +4. When you get that little swipe there, that's +4 all day. So this is definitely a safe move to use in your pressure, and it reaches very far. As you can see, you either get the elbow or you get the swipe, and we're already in the corner. So even if you do it right up on them, you're +1. And keep in mind, this game has a 3 frame throw, and the fastest frame in the game is 5 frames. His super is 5 frames, but we'll go over that a little later. We do have some normals belonging to other characters in the game that are 5 frames, so it's pretty good. Lastly, it is +9 or +12 on counter hit. Now, if you hit it deep, you can actually get a combo on some stuff, but I'll be going over that in just a second. But it can also be special cancel, and you can special cancel it from any one of those ranges. So you can do it up close and special cancel, or you can do it way back here. Yeah, it's super good. So a couple of things worth note before we move on to the special moves and how they interact with the rest of the game. 5A on hit, just hit alone. Remember, it's +3. So if you do it from right here, it pushes him back, so you cannot get throw. However, there's something unique in this game in the fact that you can press forward and throw, and it moves you a little bit forward. So if you get this, you can car throw, or this game's version of car throw. And same thing with AA. It's pretty damn good. So that's 3 pips right there off the bat. Next is my favorite button for this character, 4A. Now, we already said it's crazy range, right? But let's say you get this on counter hit. Now, this is, in fact, what I think this character is really good at, is counter hitting your opponent. In fact, I believe that to be his main focus. And this is one of the reasons why. So you can already get this, right? But remember earlier I told you this popped up and knocked down. So this is what it does, right? So you'll get the knockdown and then you'll already have advantage, right? But you can do some pretty crazy stuff. I like to call this my party button. So if you hit it from a max range, you can follow up with AA and you get the second hit of AA, which causes a knockdown, and then you can set up ghosts. Call a ghost, and then you gotta hold that, right? But then you start to get crazy stuff like 4ABB. So you can do that from anywhere. And that's 3 damage. Immediately corner push, and it's party time again. You're in the corner. It's time to play his throw strike counter hit game, right? You also can get into C. It only does the 1 damage, even though it's 2 hits at the end. But it looks cool. It pushes. Just another option in case. You also have 4A into jump A for an air reset. Once again, establishing that throw strike game. You have 4A in the jumping B. It's a little bit more tricky. Let me see if I can get it for you. You can get it on the ground splat. There you go. And then it air juggles them out. And then, of course, once again, you can go into mix-ups from there. You have 4A into 6A. And then you can cancel 6A into your B. So that'll look like... Okay, all right. Now you're back in the face. More throw strike game. For swag, all right, this is the swag. Obviously, do it only if it's about to kill, because you kind of want to keep your super, but you can go other side and another jump, and that does 3. So just that alone is already devastating from being able to just hit this button. Of course, you can hit it close, but it'll only give you the first hit, and then you can go into ghost again. So either one of those is definitely viable to use. Lastly, we got to go over our 6A. So remember I told you on counter hit, you can actually get some stuff. So from there, you can't. Of course, though, you can still cancel it. And you're negative when you do it because it does take 39 frames to start up on your B. However, it's just another mix, and you can get your opponent to kind of flinch and create some tendencies to where you get more counter hits. But if you get 6A deep, you get a 3-hit combo. So that's something to note and to keep an eye out for. And remember, it's throw and vulnerable as well. So you can just walk up if you feel like your opponent's going to try and throw bait you or throw or anything like that. Like you can just bah! And get that 3-hit combo. And that's devastating in a game where most people don't have more than like 8 health. So yeah, pretty crazy. All right, on to our special moves. So B, our counterpoint step. It's really unique for a couple reasons. One, it's 39 frame startup, so your opponent can definitely see it coming. But you can do some mixes from it that make it kind of scary. Especially seeing is that it's 0 on recovery, as you can see up there. So we can do stuff like, yeah, and then when your opponent's scared of stuff like that, we can start to explore some of the other options he has in the form of BA, which is actually plus on block. Let's change this. It's plus on block, plus 9, so it's your turn again. Right, 7 frame jab, 5A, real good. But then on top of that, if you get the counter hit, it's plus 25. 25, guys. So of course you already know we're getting a combo from that. 3 hits. If you get counter hit by that, if you flinch, you thought you were gonna try and throw back or anything like that and get smacked, that's 3 health immediately out the gate. All right. I wouldn't really whiff it a lot at bad ranges. Is there a bad range? There might not be a bad range. Okay, so extreme like that, right? It is 7 on recovery. So you can get whiff punished for just throwing it out there. However, we just saw it was kind of hard for me to put myself in range to where that did not hit. And as long as it's on block, you're safe. It's your turn again. It's time to party. Next, we have B, follow-up B. So this is the money maker, as you saw earlier. You get the wall bounce on counter hit. It is minus 14 on block with a 6 frame startup. You can kind of see it, but being able to get that spacing on that counter hit is ridiculous because sometimes it wall bounces when you get that correct spacing. Still trying to get the hang of it, but as you can see, sometimes you walk forward and then it'll wall bounce. It's really weird. I need more testing with them, but it does lead into some huge damage, which I'll be showing off here in a little bit. Lastly, we have our B and then into C. So as we saw in the tutorial for the little character breakdown for the move list, C is actually invulnerable, hence why he flashes white as well. Most of the DPs or invulnerable moves in this game will flash white. So you can get through a bunch of shenanigans. So you can play around this game right here and then invulnerable, and then your opponent has to take that stuff. And then eventually you get to land the big stuff and then bow, 4 damage immediately because, right? So that's what establishes his throw strike game, because now you can, oh, you're scared? Go to church. Plus 25, get a combo on block, plus 9, still my turn. So very good stuff off of the counterpoint step. It is definitely something you want to be utilizing throughout your match to kind of condition your opponent in order to take your shenanigans. Next, we have our little ghost here, our little ghosty ghost. So our little ghosty ghost will just hold people in place, just yoke them up by the neck, right? 8 frame startup, 23 on recovery before we can move. So you call out the ghost, you can't move until it starts to move. So I'm gonna hold forward on my hitbox after I do it, and you'll see how long. Now I can move. So it kind of makes it scary when you can walk with the ghost, but it's not an immediate action out of it. So just be aware that there is some wait time for that, all right? Next, we have our jumping special attacks. So you have your air B, which is a little kick, right? But the kick can be chained into itself and it floats at different angles and provides a bunch of coverage on the ground, right? Now we also have our jump C, which he calls the ghost down. And unlike the grounded version of our ghost, which is 8 frame startup, our aerial ghost is actually a little bit faster in the form of 7 frames. So I guess that has to account for you jumping and then doing it, but it is something to kind of mix up your opponent when you're doing this, or when you get like the clean jump in A, which as you can see is plus 36 on counter hit. It's really good on block as well. Let's see it on block. Boop, 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 boop. Plus 15 on block. Your turn again, plus 14. It varies depending on the height, but yeah. So when you start to establish that this is plus, and this can be plus at certain situations, yes, you did see -9, but you can get it to +7. I believe you can get this all the way up to like +11 or something like that, depending on how you hit it. But I'll go over that a little bit more in detail in a second. Yeah, and then lastly we have our supers. So we have a grounded super, which is a counter, and it is very fast, 5 frames, 28 frames active, but 28 on recovery as well. So your opponent has all day to punish you if you just throw this out willy-nilly. You can kind of react to certain supers. I know you can react to Valerie's. Hers is a 7-frame startup. You have a 5-frame super. You can just say screw all that and go right through it. And I'll show you an example of that towards the end of the video as well. So some things to highlight over your special moves that you want to keep in mind is, once again, since normal B with no follow-up has 0 recovery, you can act out of it immediately using your throw, fastest thing in the game, 3 frames. You can also use your BA on block or hit to steal back your turn and just keep going with your pressure. On counter hit though, got the counter hit on counter hit, like I showed earlier, you get AA, or you can actually 4A, and you can 6A, I believe, as well. Yep. And then all of these can be chained into your counter step all over again, so you can go. Now of course that'd be negative, but that's an example of how to kind of scare your opponent. You've already been harassing them this whole time. They don't know what to take. You don't want to take the A again, so now you stick them with the B, probably get that counter hit and finish the job if you've already been doing your job properly. Your BB on counter hit gives you that wall bounce, and as I told you earlier, sometimes you can walk forward and force that wall bounce. Still trying to figure that out. Gonna have to talk to the developers about trying to make that consistent. Sometimes they'll actually splat to the floor, and then you saw like I walked forward and then got the wall bounce. Sometimes they'll splat really low to the ground, and then when you get that big wall bounce though, you start to get stuff like BB into BB. So let's see if we can get it. All right, so we didn't get the wall bounce that time. Probably needed to walk forward, or maybe because it was in the corner. 4 damage. 4 damage off rip. And as you can hear too, it says truth and justice when you hit the second one. So the developers definitely knew what they were doing when they put that mechanic in. So shout outs to the guys at Fantasy Strike for keeping stuff like that in the game. It's pretty damn cool. You can also get like some really weird stuff depending on where it bounces as well. So if you get the bounce, you can walk up and then do stuff like that. You can also get 4A. It's not really recommended. If you can get the 6A, definitely get the 6A so you can go back into your mix-up pressure. You can even get the, well, you can get that into Ghost. Meaty Ghost. And then she got yoked up, and we're on the other side too. So definitely take note of how they bounce, when they bounce, what normals to use, what follow-up, how much life. These things will definitely dictate what you use to follow up and make the best of your golden opportunity after that. Lastly, BC. Really weird, right? You can space this out to make it, I believe, always somewhere around -10, -11, depending on your spacing. So that's -11, really close. But remember, it's invulnerable, so I've actually gone through supers with it if people try and react, and I'll land and actually block and then get the punish. Unfortunately though, it's not invulnerable to throws. So you can get thrown after doing this stuff. All right, you definitely can get thrown. Let's see if we can get an example going here. So we're gonna set the dummy to reversal, straight up super after it. So watch this, and I get the block, but let's set it to throw, and it will not beat that thrown. So keep that in mind. You can actually get away from supers and mess your opponent up really well. But if they know the tech already, you're getting thrown. Be cautious. Lastly, let's go over some of our air stuff. As you saw earlier, I was playing around with that notion, and you can set that on throw as well and beat your opponent out. And see, and because we use 6A, which is throw and vol, if your opponent goes for anything up close where they're not supposed to, they just get beat out by it, or you at least be able to stop them from reacting. And of course, you can just do 1B in the air and space it correctly and get different frame data for it. +6. That was a -2 I got thrown for it. And that keeps you safe. And you get the counter hit from that, and then vanity step. So these are just examples of trying to bait your opponent out with some of your air movement. Of course, you have your jumping A, which is super +15. You can actually jump out before your opponent even gets to react. So you can jump in and then jump again. And then counter hit. What are you throwing? I'm not there. And then chain it and knock down. So there's definitely some validity to using that move. You can also cancel it really close to the ground, and it has like no recovery. Look at that, 0 recovery. 0 active, but still 6 recovery. But it's still super good, because then you can start to do stuff like land really, really close and then throw, which also establishes this throw strike game. That's pretty damn good. Once you start to establish stuff like that, then you can start to do ghost. And as you can see, I didn't go over that earlier, but ghost is hella plus on block. 26. That is a ridiculous number. All right, so you can just walk behind this ghost, and then when they try and throw you, you get the counter hit, and then it's party time all over again. I haven't really found too many setups to make the ghost combo. However, the ghost can be used to establish, once again, your pressure, make your vanity steps really scary to deal with. And when you do get that hit, it feels oh so lovely. Last thing I want to cover is the air super. Now, you saw me earlier when I got the counter hit and I was able to do like the Swagalicious combo, and it definitely did a bunch of damage. However, let me show you guys something. All right, so turn this off, and then we're gonna go after first hit. If you get this on counter hit, get the first time, bow, 3 damage, 3 on counter hit. Whereas normally if you get it, it won't do that damage, but counter hit, that can end a round if you scout your opponent out, and especially if they're jumping and doing some stuff. He's like, bah! And then 3 health. Like, they have to hold that. They might have died. If you had already established some of your pressure that we've gone over, once you get your super and you scout that out, that's a round ender for sure. Some closing marks for the character. Overall, the toolkit is very solid. You definitely need to know your character, your spacing, your moves, and who you're facing as well. Some of this stuff isn't possible, especially with somebody like Satsuki, who has a 5-frame normal. You can bait it out. However, just be aware that sometimes when you go for your vanity step, some people might have the wherewithal to come in your house and steal your sneakers. All right, so just keep your toes guarded and play solid. The game is definitely all about footsies. He's one of the best characters for it, and will make your opponent pay for wanting to do dumb stuff throughout the match. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will be making more for the rest of the cast. Please be patient. A lot of time and effort goes into making these. So if you can, please hit that like and subscribe button. It would definitely be greatly appreciated. And until next time, chaos out.
It's my turn.